Hey guys, so I'm back in Chiang Mai, getting back into a good training routine now, training for Aiga, which isn't far away in a few weeks or so time. I hope you've all had the chance to see my most recent video that I put out a few days ago for Ultra Trail Australia. Had a fantastic time there, really enjoyed the experience. It was a really incredible race and the Blue Mountains really blew me away. And I'm really grateful to everyone that I met along the way in Australia and everyone that supported me and all you guys as well for the support that you gave me. So when I was out there, I put an Instagram post out asking if anyone had any specific questions relating to the race itself. So I wanted to make a Q&A today to answer some of those questions, and hopefully it might give you guys some insight into Ultra Trail Australia if you're hoping to race it in future years. Or most of them are probably generic questions really that would help you prepare for any ultra, I hope. So just a few ideas that maybe I can pass on to you guys today that can really help you on your ultra experiences. Do you stop at the aid stations, and for how long usually? So it really depends on what point in the race we're at. Typically in these 100-kilometer ultras, if it's a fast one like Ultra Trail Australia was, so I knew going into the race that the goal was going to be running around 10 hours. I knew that the weather wasn't going to be too challenging. We had beautiful clear skies for the day. So if you're having a race like this when there's a lot of elements under your control, then typically I find that I don't have to stop too long at aid stations in terms of changing clothes or really bothering with drop bags or anything like that. I like to try and keep things really simple going into an aid station, so I'm in and into the aid station and out as fast as possible. So maybe typically I stop at an aid station anywhere between 30 seconds to a minute, just filling my bottles up for the most part, filling up the water, getting some electrolyte mix into the bottles, maybe throwing a bit of trash in the can, picking up a banana, and then I'm straight out of there. So typically you might see, if you see any footage of me at an aid station, it's always pretty quick. Within UTA this was the case, especially within the first few aid stations. Brendan, the eventual winner of the race, Brendan Davis, didn't stop very long at all. In the first couple he actually ran through the aid stations pretty much, so I definitely want to keep him within my sights, so I just quickly filled my bottles up and ran straight out there. You have to keep an eye on your opponents, but it is important to stick to your plan, not to rush through the aid stations, especially if you're in an ultra where there's very few. Some ultras have a lot of aid stations, a lot more than you'd need, so you can kind of take the gamble and maybe run through a few of them or just fill up on water and kind of pass them by. But some ultras do have quite a long distance between aid stations and a lot more self-supported, so obviously you need to kind of have your game plan and understand your limits and make sure you are carrying enough water between those. Typically within a 100k race like this, I'll usually just be pretty self-supported there. If I'm lucky and I've got some crew out on the course, then that's really helpful and handy at times. But within Ultra Trail Australia, I was actually kind of just doing things solo, and that's typically what I've done in the last few ultras that I do. I go out with 12 gels located on my pack, on my body, and have my drink mixes as well in my pack. And I usually feel pretty good about this, pretty confident, and that usually works really well for me. What nutrition did you take in during the race? So within the race, all my racing nutrition that I generally use is Unived sports nutrition. So I use the Unived Run gels and Unived Run electrolyte mix, drink mix. Also within these ultra races, when I feel like I need something a bit more solid, I'll eat a Runivore bar, which is dates, chia seeds. So it's like a whole foods bar, which really helps to kind of get a bit more fuller. If you're out there for a few hours and you're just living on gels, you do feel like you need something a bit more sustainable, so an energy bar works really well for me. At aid stations, I'll also head for a bit of fruit, so I get some bananas, maybe some oranges. It's important not to overdo it on the solid foods, especially if you're racing hard. So with a fast 100k like Ultra Trail Australia, typically I wouldn't eat too many solid foods. I'd just try and get by on the more simple foods that the body can digest very easily. When you're training and you're racing really hard, a lot of the blood is diverted away from the stomach into the extremities, into the legs, of course, which are working really hard. So I always try to make sure I'm keeping things as simple as possible, getting some liquid calories with drink mixers, and obviously gels are pretty much a liquid themselves. And then just really simple fruits and bananas are really helpful for me. But towards the end of an ultra, you might find, or towards the middle, or if you're taking a bit longer to complete these races or doing maybe a 100-miler, you certainly probably need to really focus on a lot more solid foods. So maybe some hot soup, some noodles, some rice, something like this, where it's high in carbohydrate, but still relatively easy to digest. it's probably going to be pretty good to help keep you satiated throughout the race. How many weeks do you specifically train for an event? If you were to run Ultra Trail Australia again, what would you do different in training? So if I was going to do Ultra Trail Australia again, I'm not sure really how I would change my training. I was pretty happy with my training. I think maybe one component that I would work on a little bit more was just my general leg speed on the flats again. I did do a fair amount of tempo work and just general running on the flats, which is important to get the leg speed up again. But I think this was a really big component that maybe I should have paid a little bit more attention to. It's a fast race in parts. That's really what I enjoyed about it. There was a lot of technical sections, a lot of steep sections where you're going up those steep stairs and down those steep stairs, down the cliff face. But there was also a lot of fast and pretty flat running going around there on those dirt roads through the middle of the forest, which are really beautiful. So I definitely maybe would have worked on this component a little bit more, maybe doing a long, steady effort, maybe towards 20 miles or even a bit faster than that would have been great preparation going into this race. I know that Brendan does a lot of fast, flat work as well, and it definitely paid off. You could see the pace that he had on the flat in the race, and it really just seemed easy to him.
I'm just trying to run in my bubble. Yeah, I'm feeling pretty comfortable at the moment, but there's a long way to go.
To answer the second part of the question, how many weeks do I typically train for an ultra? I'm always in pretty heavy training. I've been racing quite a lot this past year already, so I don't typically do massive specific training blocks for one race. So maybe for each race, I think it's worked out maybe at like 6-week specific training blocks with the next race in mind right now. So I know that a lot of people, and from a performance level, maybe it would help to do less races and have a longer build up for them. But I do enjoy racing and exploring. It's all part of the adventure. If you guys don't understand that already, I'm sure you do if you've seen any of my other videos. But yeah, 6-week training block, being specific to the demands of the race ahead, usually works pretty well for me. And because typically at the moment I am focusing on 100k trail races, ultra trail races, they're all pretty similar. Some of them do require a bit more kind of climbing, so a bit more steeper preparation where you're focusing on more vertical, just like I am now for Eiger Ultra Trail. But some of them, like UTA, are more of a runner's race, if that makes sense. You've still got lots of climbing, but there's lots of big stretches where you are running pretty hard and pretty fast. So always try and find the balance and really look and spend some time looking at the course profile, reading a few blogs, a few bits of video or feedback about the ultra trail races that you're about to sign up for, about to race for, and then trying to mimic the demands of that race and training is a really important part. So within that 6 final weeks leading up to an ultra race, that's typically what I'm doing, just making sure my training is very specific towards the demands that particular race has. So it's so it's always a bit of a challenge and always good fun to sit down and look at the race ahead, look at the course profile, and really try and figure out what's the best training routine, the best training plan or training runs, key sessions that you can do to really develop the fitness for that training, for that race ahead. Do you think stair repeats were important in preparing for this race, knowing that the end was further stairs? Also, how do you not need to go for a P in a race of this distance and time? So to answer the P question, definitely have to stop and pee within these kind of races. I know that some guys do pee as they're running along, which is a acquired skill, which takes a bit of practice. It's not something I do myself. I'd rather just stop and take care of business there if needs be. But yeah, in terms of stair repeats, I'm very lucky here in Chiang Mai. We've got a pretty steep trail just outside of where I am, basically, called Pilgrim's Trail, which allowed me to really work on the kind of last steep kind of vertical stairs side of things when it came to further stairs in UTA. So going into the race, a lot of people have discussed that this was definitely a kind of pivotal point of the race. I know that in the past, a lot of places in kind of podium places have been exchanged on those stairs. So I knew that getting to those stairs and feeling strong in them was an important part of the process of that race. So towards the end of a lot of my long runs in the preparation for UTA, I kind of doubled up back up Pilgrim's Trail before heading home. So on tired legs, on tired body and mind, when all I wanted to do was come in through the front door and just relax, I forced myself to go up Pilgrims a few times, or go up Pilgrims at least once, or the second half of Pilgrims where it's really steep, and it really kind of matched similar kind of elevation and demands physically as the further stairs. But doing a bit more strength work as well before UTA was definitely an important part of that. So when it came to the race, I actually felt really strong on further stairs and was running up them pretty hard, trying to get a really strong finish. So it paid off well, and I definitely recommend it for anyone who is going into UTA. Definitely get some stair work in there. Alright guys, so I hope you enjoyed that Q&A. Sorry it kind of stopped pretty abruptly. I had a coaching client just start calling me as I was finishing up the video there, so obviously had to stop the Q&A. I hope it was useful and helpful for you guys, any of you that are preparing for UTA next year or have got an upcoming ultra. Let me know if you've got an ultra coming up anytime soon. It'd be great to hear from you guys, hear what you're all up to, what challenges you're looking up to kind of starting this year and this summer perhaps. Anyone going to be at Eiger? That's my next challenge. It'll be cool to see any of you guys if any of you are there. I'm going to hit some swimming now. I've had a good run this morning, about 29k up and down the mountain. Pretty hard effort and my legs are feeling a bit fried. So get in the pool now, do some easy swimming, and then hopefully I feel nice and relaxed. Hope you enjoyed this video. Got some cool vlogs on the way as well, which I hope you guys enjoy. Make sure you hit the subscribe button if you do and follow along. And best of luck to you guys and happy running.